Hi, this is Carol Stimmel in the Engerati studio at European Utility Week 2015. We're here today to talk about smart meter data and some of the more important use cases for it. We have four experts with us today: Paulo, Jesper, Ronnie, and Kalle. And first we're going to go around and have some proper introductions and hear a little bit about our panelists, and then we're going to jump right into the issues and start talking about some of the most interesting and innovative ways that we can use smart meter data.
My name is Paulo, live in Monteiro. I work at Distribuição, Distribution, which is the mainland Portugal DSO. And I work at Technology and Innovation. I'm directing the Department of Innovation and Technology.
Great. Thank you. Jesper.
Yeah, I'm Jesper from Kamstrup, Head of Global Marketing there. Kamstrup is a company that works inside smart metering, so we provide the meter, the infrastructure, the software and the hosting for the metering data, and we do that inside electricity, water and district heating.
Okay, very interesting. Ronnie.
I'm Ronnie, I'm a technology expert at Eni Gas and Power. We are our energy retailer and I'm working in the innovation department.
Kalle.
Thank you. I'm coming from Elering. This is the Estonian TSO, the transmission system operator in both in electricity and natural gas. And you may wonder why I'm talking here about this topic, but what we also do is we're strongly focusing on the market and also not just wholesale but the retail market and find out the ways how to bring more efficiencies to the customers.
Great. Okay, so we have a very, very nice cross-section of the industry here today. So I'm anticipating a very interesting conversation. We might not always agree, but we'll see where we end up. So smart meter data. Across the world, in the developed world, we're moving towards ubiquity, at least with some version of smart meters. They don't all behave the same. Some of them have two radios in there, some don't. We don't even know sometimes how big the actual data packet is that goes back. We have lots of variations in the system, but we can agree that a smart meter allows us to actually see with some greater degree of certainty how energy is being consumed. And we're getting data back of varying quality and granularity. So first of all, I want to talk about billing data. Billing is what we've been talking about for a long time. We can build a customer more accurately. We can build them at whatever increments we've set our meters for. But the thing about the smart meter is it's also a sensor. It does so much more. So I want to know if we're seeing a movement beyond just billing for smart meter data, first of all. And well, first, is it working for smart meter billing? Are we actually using it? And then where do we go from there? So let's start there. There are many utilities who put smart meters in the field. When they get the data back, they have to roll it up into monthlies because their other systems downstream can't handle it. So I think I was trying to take the backdoor approach to find out, is that still happening? Are we still doing it? Or are we actually using smart meters for billing now? And let's get into the idea of operational efficiencies also. That's definitely where I want to go. What do you think?
Well, you can say most of our clients initially start to think about smart meters because they want to optimize their billing process. Mm-hmm. Just touching on that subject, what we see is that once they have installed the smart metering systems, that 20% of the business case is about efficiency in the billing process. 40% of the business case is identifying waste in the grid.
Okay.
So the majority of the reason for installing smart metering is actually we can eliminate waste. But going back to the whole billing process, the benefit of the billing process is that once you have automated that process completely, that you actually remove possibilities of making mistakes and errors. And in that way you allow actually a situation, you build a system of trust between the utility and the consumer. Because from the consumer point of view, he can actually go back in the log and he can see the actual reason why the invoice is as it is. So that's billing confident on one end. On the other end, the utility get a possibility to get alerts if the customer decides to cheat. So that way they also know that if they do not get alerts, then from the consumer side, they can actually trust that everything is billed what is being used. And in that, you can say system of trust. You can then go into a third level of benefits where you start to engage the consumer and you start to provide additional services and benefits for the consumer. But I think you need that, you can say, basic element of trust generated first.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. So I guess, I don't want to say just billing data, because you're right. If that is the way that we're building trust within the utility, even just for that data, for the quality of the data, what better way to do it than through the billing cycle, because we have a fiduciary responsibility to bill our customers properly, and they have a responsibility to pay what they owe. So it's a really good point. Ronnie, what do you think?
Well, we as an energy supplier, we are in fact a billing machine, and the billing of the client is an end-of-line process. And what's important for us is also, if you take one step back, it's how you build a client, how you build up new tariffs using, for instance, time of use mechanisms. And using those mechanisms, you can only do that with smart meter data or very detailed data, quarterly values, hourly values, and of course we have to get that notion of correct billing to the client in a pretty correct manner. But for us, billing is an end-of-line process, and we have lots of processes before that billing moment that are really important for us as well.
Right. Okay. So that is important. What do you think, Kalle?
Our position as a TSO's position is that you should make all the data available to the customers, and you should do it in a reliable and a transparent way. That there is where we saw in Estonia the role for TSO. And just a couple of years ago, we have set up our central data hub. So all the distribution operators have to upload their meter data regularly in this data hub, and all the customers can see their hourly consumption data. And the data hub also enables the customers to authorize the suppliers to access their data, and based on this information they can make the offers to the customers. So that's what's our role there, and it's easy. You can just use your ID card, access the system, and give mandates to the third parties.
You were talking a little bit about what you're offering your customers.
Well, as a follow-up to our Data Hub project, we have launched a more wider platform called Estfeed. So it's really enabling to share all the energy-related data. It can be the metering data, the same data from Data Hub, but it can be everything as well up to the device-level information, also including the weather forecast information or day-ahead price information. So, and this platform, this central platform, enables to transmit this data in a secure way to different interested parties who want to build their applications on top of that platform. And we are developing some pilots already, but in principle everybody will be free to develop their own, and based on those apps they can provide energy services to their customers or to themselves. And bring some efficiencies, some savings to the all parties. And we have developed this on Estonian public infrastructure called X-Road. So all the Estonian public services are using the same platform. There are something like 2,000 services built on that platform. And we are doing the same here in energy now. It's the first time in the private sector, actually. So far it has been used for public services.
So Ronnie, it sounds like you have a different relationship with your customers, a very different relationship.
Exactly. As I stated earlier, as an energy supplier, our customer is of course the central part. The billing, which is an end-of-line process, is one aspect that we talked about, but we also use in fact smart meter data to build up new products for our clients, to see how our clients are using their energy. If they have, for instance, an example, a typical family, lots of energy usage in the morning and then lots of energy usage in the evening, but not during the day. It's just the opposite way of using energy from a company. A company has lots of energy during the day, but not in the evening and not early in the morning. And we use that smart meter data, that detailed data, in fact, to build up new tariffs, but also to build up new load profiles that we use in our forecasting and sourcing exercises. So it's a bit different than our colleagues here. It's more, well, for us, it's the client which is the central part of our
So,
reflection.
I mean, we do have different perspectives across the globe that are driven for political reasons, the openness of data, privacy, where we sit in terms of the stream. What is your perspective on using the meter data for grid optimizations, which is kind of where we started this talk?
Yeah, if you look at across the different utility types, then you can say when we look about waste in the grid, there is the waste that is related to, you can say, basically non-technical losses. We have also waste that is related to in district heating leakages, and the possibility to identify those waste and do something about it is of course very important for the operational efficiency of the utility. But what is also very important is that when it comes to investment, we have seen a lot of clients using theoretically models to calculate how they should size the grid. And actually, what the feedback we get from our clients is that now they start to have an amount of consumption data, where instead of calculating in theoretically models, they can actually, you can say, get a pretty accurate picture of what is the, you can say, capacity needed in the grid. And that's a lot of millions that can be reduced in terms of necessary investment. We've done another research project on pressure in water pipes, where we've identified that if you can control the pressure in water pipes, if you can identify what we call water hammers, you can actually prolong the lifetime of the water grid. And again, we are talking, I heard 200,000 euros per kilometer of water pipes if you want to replace them before time.
Wow, yeah.
So there's a lot of money to be identified in reduced investment and also in grid efficiency in that area.
Okay, so here's an interesting, in the beginning I said, wow, what an interesting cross-section of people to talk about data, and we're all really talking about our silos of data, which is very interesting. But what I understand is one of the biggest inhibitors to innovation using data has to do with this data, the open data issue, the transparency of the issue, and I want to hear people's opinions on the privacy of data, really. Yeah. So just from really, let's start at a higher level, and then let's try to drive down to where we think we need to be to drive the kind of innovation we need to realize the savings you're talking about in the water grid. So let's just start with you again.
Yeah, if we take water, then you can say in most of the water installation we have the granularity of water on the consumption point is 1 time per day. And the reason for that is privacy. So would you, as a consumer, like somebody else to know when you use water? Because that's telling a lot about your private pattern. When do you shower? When do you cook? And those kind of things. So to avoid, you can say, a long discussion in the local community about privacy, the water utility basically decides 1 time a day, we get the consumption back. The same thing with other kinds of utilities, that they're a bit careful, they don't want to disturb the consumer. But what I believe will happen is that, just like you know it from software, when you download software, you agree that the software engineers can actually look over.
They force you to scroll, but who's reading that, right?
Can we use the data to optimize the software? And you just say yes. And I think we'll see the same thing, that we offer people a service. Do you want to be warned if there's a leakage in your house? Do you want to be warned if the price of electricity goes below?
But see, here's the issue. We're transgressing the grid. We're transgressing that natural line that we're all used to, which is up to the meter point, whether it's water, electricity, etc. So you're talking about, and it's interesting, about allowing people to opt in to getting better information.
Yeah.
Otherwise, but the issue, and it's funny, you'll talk to a lot of different data analytics companies, and they say, look, we don't even need statistics anymore because we have all the data. Well, that's not necessarily true, is it? If we have an opt-out, and even in some places with different technologies, we'll take a hit, like a wireless mesh network could have some problems if certain data wasn't allowed to be collected. Paula, what do you think about this the impact of data privacy on how we can innovate from a technology perspective? How do we balance that?
Well, privacy is important, of course, it's very important. But I think there is a balance between the information that in fact belongs to the client and the information that we need for performing our activity. So I think there is for sure a point of balance between guaranteeing privacy for the client and still being able to use all the information that is relevant for the better operation of the grid. Typically, I'd say that the information that we use it for the grid is aggregated information. So it is not so relevant in terms of privacy. Typically, we use the aggregation in terms of the low voltage network,
right.
and so the issue is a bit diluted. But of course, we must always be careful about maintaining the privacy of all the data. But I would say regarding the collection of data from clients, and if it is every hour, every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, I'd say it is also important to know what are the benefits of collecting that information. That is, if there is a strong reason for collecting every 15 minutes or every hour, then I think it will be much easier to explain why we should do that.
Well, okay, so you're both talking about that.
And I think
Right.
that's just the point. That
I agree, yeah.
When it comes to solving climate problem, when it comes to be responsible, I mean, utilities have to put themselves on the agenda as part of the solution and not part of the problem.
Right.
And actually, you can say what we have experienced is that utilities that actually communicate the benefit to the consumers, they're, I mean, 99.99% of the consumers, they totally accept that they are automatically providing
what we're
data
doing with your
that
data.
helps the utility to give them a better service or to give them a lower price, which they're also willing to accept.
Yes.
Well, and Kalle has already described what he's doing with the data. I want to get back to how you were able to do that, but first, Ronnie, I see you nodding your head.
Yes.
So tell us why.
Because privacy is in fact a really hot topic in Belgium for the moment. So actually we don't have smart meters yet. We only have, well, pilot projects conducted by the DSO. But that's one really critical point for sharing, of course, information. And the new market model, which is going to be live in 2017-18, is in fact well, talking about those data streams, but also, like you said before, we only get through the DSO the aggregated values. So monthly value, or at the best case a monthly value. If you want to have really detailed data, hourly data, quarterly values, we have to get it on the home access network interface from the client, so with a device, with something else. But the client has to sign that he's going to share the data with us. So that's that old privacy issue, which is, well, the box is being ticked. But if you want to really service the client and monitor the data and give insights to the client, well, you're using, well, good or badly, your energy to be simple. We need, of course, the detailed data. Without the detailed data, we have nothing. No data, no insights. But the privacy issue is really hot in Belgium, and it was also really hot in Holland.
Well, it was a human rights issue,
of course.
right? Which slowed down all sorts of rollouts in Europe anyway. So, so obviously, your organization felt that you could go straight to the customer and deliver something like this that, provided transparency, but I would think that was a pretty bold move. What made you think that you could just go forward with that? How did you message that to your customers?
In general, I think that the privacy rules are too tough in general, and that they should be reconsidered. To put it very extreme, I think it would be, at least compared to today's situation in most of the countries, it would be better to rather make all the data publicly available, because then you at least can stop the manipulation of data in the interest of narrow groups. Still, the major distribution operators are connected to one major supplier, so we cannot prove, of course, usually, but still there is a threat that this data is used only in the interest of that specific supplier, who's usually the mother company of the distribution operator.
Well, yeah.
But in real life, of course, we had to create in our system tools for authorization, and give the control to each customer itself that they can see how the data is handled and what it's used for, etc., etc. So we have to build a authorization system, and we have to build a log system in our platform, so you can always follow who has and why and when used your data and for what.
Okay, so that's an issue, I believe, of data ownership. Who owns the data? Does the customer own their smart meter data because it's their activities that generated it? Or does the utility own the data because they're collecting? All right, you have an opinion, but I want to go to Ronnie first because I saw a strong response to what Kalle is talking about.
You have, well, as everywhere in Europe, you have a TSO level, DSO level, and supplier level. Right. And we are clearly at the supplier level. We are an energy retailer. And the privacy issues are more data privacy issues at supplier level. On the other levels, on DSO and TSO level, it's more a security issue without not losing the data or not systems not being hacked. It's more that kind of issues that, well, at least they have in Belgium.
Right.
At the supplier level, it's really privacy of data. What are you going to do with it? We are a commercial company, so we offer commercial products to our clients, and it's a little bit different in the roles and responsibilities.
I think it's a very complicated issue, and there are merits, I believe, to this fairly radical position around data. What do you think? I saw you even raised your hand, so I know you have an opinion.
I did, because I think we briefly touched on, you could say, putting the consumers in the driver's seat, that they're in control, that they can accept or de-accept. I mean, look at what people make available, what data they make available on on social media. They put all kind of stuff up there, exactly. But they are in control. They decide what they put up there. And I'm going back to that, you can say, building that level of trust. We have to make sure that utilities and consumers are somewhat connected. When you have established that basic of trust, it's much easier to actually go to them and say, well, okay, you need to opt in order to give you more granularity of data to us that we can give you those services. And just try to think about, you can say, we all have parents or grandparents that would like to live in their own home as long as they can. But we also hear sometimes about old people that fell and been laying on the floor for 2 or 3 days. I mean, actually, smart metering data, if consumers allow that, smart metering data could actually point out that something is wrong because the pattern is suddenly not followed anymore. So I think there's a huge potential that we can achieve here, and I strongly believe that once you have built that level of trust, it's actually not that difficult to get the majority of people on the hook. There will always be a couple of percent that will say, no, that's dangerous.
So it's the value, and I believe there are a lot of very interesting use cases that can come from, I mean, there's no other word for it. You're monitoring the activity of the house, right? I mean, that's what you're doing. However, having a relationship with your utility up until now has sort of been like having a relationship with your plumber. Like when the lights don't go on, then that's when the concern is. Yeah. So I'd like to hear from you about what you think about this idea of privacy being an inhibitor for possible innovation, the kind of innovation you're talking about, because these are the powerful use cases. They're happening over here. You have a different relationship you have to tend to in terms of cybersecurity. What are your thoughts?
I do not feel at our activity that in fact privacy is an inhibitor of innovation, at least up to now. But of course I'm aware, and we are aware, that privacy must be taken very seriously. But I'd say that up to now, I don't think this is an inhibitor for us, at least for our activity. I think I agree with this principle of trust that will support us in our activity and is very much supported by transparency of what we are doing and explaining what are the benefits of what we are doing. I think that trust is in fact mandatory for the success of innovation with the clients, and that we can support that by explaining, by giving information, by including the clients the customers in what we are doing, explaining them, and also promoting the involvement of customers in the whole electric system. We did a test we had a pilot of 30,000 customers with smart meters in the region of Portugal. and we tried for 1 year to see what was the behavior of the customers with smart meters, 30,000, regarding, for instance, energy efficiency, giving them the billings according to the correct consumption. In the end, in average, there was a reduction of 4% of those 30,000 consumers compared to the neighbors. And for the second year in a row, this same 4% was still there. And this was only achieved, I would say, by giving them not very much information, giving them the invoice according to their real consumption, and giving them a lot of information regarding the project, regarding energy efficiency, regarding the importance of them also to be part of this project. So I think that this relationship with the client or with the customer is essential for the success of this kind of project, for sure.
All right. Well, we only have a few minutes left, so I'm almost afraid to ask this question, but I am. And I'm going to give each of us a chance to provide some sort of answer to it. I think I already know your answer to my question, but we'll see. So, maybe we've done this all wrong. Maybe we should have just been looking at smart meters and the associated data we were going to get from them as just another infrastructure upgrade. So I guess the question is, did we oversell the value of smart meter data to the customer? And should we have kept it focused on the reliability, safety, quality of energy? So let's start with you.
For us, the ICT these days clearly is part of the infrastructure. It has the growing importance, and for sure we cannot live without ICT components in our system. So we are putting a lot of effort on ICT and on R&D projects related to ICT. So I really do believe in these technologies.
Great. Ronnie, what do you think?
Well, for the moment we only have, to give a really actual use case, we only have one reading a year. And with one reading a year, electricity or gas, we can't give any insights to the clients. And our energy landscape is getting more and more diverse and more, well, difficult. Let's say you have EVs, you have heat pumps, you have micro CHPs, etc., etc. And I think with that non-smart meter with one reading a year is really not enough to give the necessary insights towards, well, our clients.
Okay. So maybe your answer is maybe. Maybe. Jesper.
Well, from my point of view, there's a period where you need to establish the platform. So having that, you could say, smart metering infrastructure in place suddenly will allow you to do a lot of things. And I think, in terms of communication and what we've been saying, yes, we have been talking about a lot of what would be possible when this platform is available. What we see in those marketing countries where the platform is available, that we start actually to harvest those benefits. Sometimes we actually learn in the process that it was something else that provided the benefit than what we thought. So I'd say it's more, you could say we're moving into a new phase where instead of, you could say, talking about the vision and implementing the platform, we actually have the platform and we start to come into very concrete examples of delivering value. And as we talked about, there's some very concrete example of identifying waste both on the utility or the grid side and on the consumer side that change the return on investment 4 or 5 times in the right direction, that is. So I think we're just moving into another phase now, and we are just as smart metering solution provider, we're starting to build analytical tools both for the utilities but also for the consumers, where we can actually show the value of the data. So I see this more as you could say a natural process that we're moving
Right,
through.
so you're kind of likening it to the process of data analytics, the process of discovery.
Yes.
What do you think?
I think that smart metering data and smart metering solutions integrated in a smart grid vision, they have more than value enough to justify the investment. Because we have benefits, and you told at least 2 of them, it was about losses, it was about energy efficiency, and it is about reduction of operational costs, because we now do remotely what we had to do locally. And so just with these 3 benefits, we can justify the investment in smart metering. But I believe, but this has to be proved, that in fact smart metering data has higher value than the one that still is enough to justify the investment right now.
Okay, so great talk. Who knew that we still had things to talk about with smart meters, smart meter data? And I think the answer that I'm hearing, the consistent point is that smart meter data is just one of the tools, one of the important tools we have not only for grid optimization, but also for enhancing customer relationships. We need them out there. We need them to run the grid more efficiently, and we'll see what we can do with it.
And the technology is there.
The technology is there.
It's a good conclusion.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This is Kalle Stimmel from the Engerati studio at European Utility Week 2015.